Hey guys, it's Justin at the Survivor Review, and today I'm going to talk about the final big comic book movie of the summer, and in my opinion they saved the best for last, with the Wolverine, the new X-Men movie and recent Wolverine movie, that I thought nailed it. I don't think it's the best movie or completely perfect, which I'll get to in a minute, but it was a movie I enjoyed immensely and just loved seeing. If you were all like, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see Hugh Jackman again as Wolverine, I'm tired of him, just go see it. It's such a good film. It's such a well-made, awesome film. So, I'll start out with the plot. The plot revolves around Wolverine. It's after X-Men 3, and he ran away from the X-Men because he can't take it that he's still alive after all this, and Jean Grey is dead. Jean Grey, if you've seen in the trailer, she appears briefly in the trailer. She has a pretty, not big, but bigger role in the movie that you'd expect, because he always sees her like in his dreams and stuff like that. And I'm surprised she had a bigger role than I was expecting, but so one day we see early on, like in the beginning, the first scene in the movie, that when he was a POW in World War II, when the atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki, and he ends up saving this one soldier's life, Wolverine, and then that guy ends up becoming this big billionaire, businessman, owner, like the most rich person in Japan, and so he calls Wolverine, and he wants to get rid of his immortality and have it for like himself. And throughout the movie, Wolverine starts losing his powers, and he has to get his powers back and stuff like that. And the movie is not like the smartest plotted movie, but I just love how well done this movie was. It's not your typical comic book movie at all. It's a slower movie. There's a lot of action. There's action scenes in it, not a lot, but a decent amount. And it's not your typical. Like if you're going in looking for a big slam bang summer blockbuster, Man of Steel, where stuff's getting destroyed left and right, this is not your movie. For a lot of the time, it is actionless, and it just delves with Wolverine's character. And for that, I loved it. I couldn't find any real flaws with the first and second act of the movie. There were some flaws. I thought some of the there's some shaky cam in the first action scene that was a little kind of like, you don't have to do that. But as it went on, there wasn't any. And there's a couple slow moments, I guess, that I was kind of lost interest a teeny bit. But besides that, I didn't really find any flaws. It was such a well-told story, and it's surprisingly violent for a PG-13. You could tell that the director was aiming for an R, and he, like a little while ago, confirmed there's going to be an R-rated, unrated cut on DVD. And I can see some of the stuff that got cut out, because there's some scenes in here where like, oh, they're doing that. And Wolverine's claws have blood on them. Finally, after all this wait. It's not in your face, like the claws aren't bloody and he's holding them up to like the camera like that, but if you look, like during an action scene, if you look closely, he has blood on his claws and on his hand a little bit. And I thought that was awesome. Much darker, except the movie is bloodier. It's a much darker story because it's a serious, character-driven, mostly drama for most of the film. And there's some comedy, and the comedy is really good. The comedy is funny. But my major problem was the third act. The third act is where it starts to delve into generic, kind of big climax action scene. And I felt it didn't necessarily fit the movie. It's not really a spoiler if you've seen the trailers, but the Silver Samurai is like a giant robot. Well, they reveal more about it later, but I don't care. It looks like it's a giant thing, and he's fighting, and he's kind of like, you kind of get lost in there. And the villain, the Viper, it's just like, it's this woman who can like spit out these toxins and stuff like that, and she's the villain throughout the movie. I didn't really mind her in the whole beginning, middle of the movie, because there's all this other stuff going on. So like whenever she popped up, I didn't really care. But when she took center stage in the climax of the movie, that's when she really, it was a bland villain, a really bland villain. But at first I didn't mind it up until she starts becoming the main bad guy. Like has Wolverine in like these inner clutches, and I'm just like, I'm not really buying. I'm not intimidated. She's not scared. She's not memorable. Yeah. But for the most part, this is, like I said, such a different type of comic book movie. The director did this perfectly. I mean, he really knew what he was doing. Hugh Jackman, top form, brilliance. Probably his best performance as Wolverine to date. And again, I'm actually really happy this movie turned out good. This is the one that everybody had no expectations for. Nobody wanted to see it. But I was always the optimist. I mean, there's this one moment a while ago where me and Sam were at a movie theater. We walked out and we saw the Wolverine poster. And I was just like, yeah, Wolverine, you gotta see that one. And Sam just went, yeah, that's gonna suck. I'm like, do you really know? You can't hold optimism. He's like, yeah, you could, but it's gonna suck. So, a lot of people were excited for this movie, but I was always holding out because it could do it, and it did it. I mean, this movie, I don't like X-Men Origins Wolverine. I hate it. It's a terrible movie. This movie just makes me so mad to even think of X-Men Origins Wolverine now because of how good this one did it. Whenever I think of Origins, I'm just gonna be like, oh no, the Wolverine. And I'll stay after the credits. It's not all the way after the credits, it's kind of like a mid-credit scene, kind of like the mid-credit scene in Avengers, like the first one before the Shawarma scene. It happens like around that time, and that scene, all I can say is it ties into the next X-Men movie. It's coming out next year, Days of Future Past. It's an awesome scene. One of the coolest post-credit scenes, or mid-credit scene, whatever, I've seen in a while. It was nice. This just was all around an awesome movie. I mean, the only real flaws like I have with it is by the end the Viper character just gets cheesy. And the ending just kind of delves into action territory. But the first half is this really character-driven, really dark, with some well-done humor through in. No like cheap humor, I felt. A dark story that's violent and really delves into the character of Wolverine. And it just really shows like what kind of character he is, and it does it very well. It's a unique movie in that sense. Plot-wise, the plot was good, it's nothing to write home about. It's not like The Dark Knight, where the plot was all these crazy stuff, it was so awesome. It's not like that plot-wise, but I would compare it to Dark Knight in the sense that, like, it was a darker, more adult-driven movie, not totally suitable for the younger audience. I'd compare it to that, but story-wise, it's not the most amazing, but for what it did, I really liked. Now, there are actually two things going into the movie that I was actually kind of worried about, and they actually turned out to be good. One scene being the action sequence on the train, on the bullet train, which in the trailer looked awful and just very cheesy and stuff like that, but the action scene was awesome. It was a lot of fun, and it wasn't like as amazing as some people were saying it was, but it was a lot of fun, and probably the coolest action scenes in the movie. And another thing was the whole plot line of him losing his powers. I don't know, I just thought it was really, in the trailer they focused on it so much that I thought it was just really kind of gimmicky. Like, oh, in this movie he loses his powers. That's how we make it new and exciting. And it honestly really worked in the movie. I thought it was a really interesting storyline, and I loved seeing Wolverine put up with these things and try to survive while getting hurt and everything. I thought that was actually really interesting, a very good story dynamic that I thought was done really well. Out of 10, I'm gonna go 9 out of 10. It probably would have been a 9.5 if it wasn't for the final scene, the final climax, which I found to be just generic and just nothing special. And I gave it 9 out of 10, the same rating I gave Man of Steel, which I gave a 9. And I really liked Man of Steel, but I will have to admit I kind of liked the Wolverine better. I thought Wolverine was a stronger movie. I cared for the characters more than I did in Man of Steel. The story was more general. This movie is in the long run, I'm probably going to remember more because of how cool it is and how different it is. Whereas Man of Steel, I still really like Man of Steel, don't get me wrong. But I don't think I'm going to remember it as fondly, because that movie I felt was a little more flawed. So yeah, that's the Wolverine. Definitely worth checking out. It's if you're a comic book fan, if you're a film fan, because it's really stylishly directed. And like I said, the plot's not the greatest, but it's really well done. The pacing, I felt, might have been a little slow at times, but to me it was well paced, and like, by the middle, I was totally into it, and like, I was just like, oh my god, yeah, oh sweet. I didn't think I would. It's just a surprise, because I know a lot of people were expecting this movie to just fail and be awful, but it's really good. Really worth checking out. Comic book fan, movie fan, in general, just see it. It's a really good movie. It's awesome. And that's about it, and I will talk to you guys later.